As humanists, we recognize the facts of evolution and our connection to other living things. We care about our environment. And because we see we only have one life to live, many of us care about our health. So what are the implications for how we eat? Sarah Moglia, local atheist and vegan activist, will be discussing why humanists specifically should be concerned with veganism. Sarah will discuss ethical issues related to animal rights and environmental concerns. She will discuss inherent problems involved in eating locally or ethically raised animals, and she will offer solutions for people who have humanist values. If you're interested in questioning cultural norms and living your values, you will find this program engaging. So let's give a warm welcome to Sarah Moglia.
Sorry, I'm kind of short, in case you hadn't noticed. But thank you for that. Yeah, I think turning off the light, I hope that is a little bit better. But anyway, welcome. Thank you for coming. My presentation is called Animals Are Friends, Not Food, Why Vegan Values Are Humanist Values. So before this presentation, I just want to get a few things out of the way, because they're things I hear all the time. But I'm not PETA, so if you have issues with PETA, it's not my fault. It's kind of like somebody saying, well, I hate American atheists, so I don't like atheism. Like, American atheist doesn't represent all atheists. PETA definitely does not represent all vegans. But I know this vegan who, and then they say something about something terrible a vegan they know has done or said. I'm not that person either, sorry. Unless I am that person, in which case I'm probably still sorry. But also not that person, so whatever they said, just ignore it. Well, I can't go vegan right this second. I have the freezer full of food and blah, blah. Relax. No one's holding a gun to your head. No one's saying you have to go vegan right this second. There are a handful of vegans here in the room with me, and I know they would all back me up in saying, like, we'd rather have you take your time and really commit to it than have you dive headfirst in, like, this second and then quit after a week. So relax. It's okay to take baby steps. Even if it's, something like, well, I'm just gonna, eat one meal with meat a day for a couple weeks, and then I'll cut it down, or meatless Mondays. Like, baby steps are great. There's one thing that people say that actually kind of hurts my feelings when they go, I'm not vegan because I care about people. I care about people too. Like, the insinuation that we only care about animals is really ridiculous. Do you not care about poverty because you're at a humanist meeting? Like, there are lots of issues. And I'm just choosing to talk about veganism. Alright, so now that that's out of the way. Oh, another thing, don't ask me if I'm mad at lions. I'm not. I promise you I'm not mad at lions for eating antelope. So why do we eat animals? There's a verse in the Bible, Genesis 1:26-28. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. All right, well, I guess that's it. Great reason to eat animals. I guess I'm done here. Oh, wait, we don't believe that. So obviously this group has moved past that rationale. So why do we use and eat animals? Lots of people actually haven't given this much thought, because it's kind of just a cultural value. So I'm going to the reasons why we shouldn't eat animals. So why humanists? Why humanists specifically should be concerned. Actually, the survey just came out about a week ago, and I was really excited about the findings. But a recent survey of about 7,000 vegans online showed that 43.38% of the respondents were atheist or agnostic. That's a lot. 45% were spiritual but not religious, so that can mean a lot of things. But they don't subscribe to like any major organized religion, or so they say. And 11.4% do follow major world religion. So religious people are in the minority, or at least I would make that claim. And atheists, agnostics, humanists are a huge group, and I think it's because a lot of the rationale for eating animals comes from divine right and that Genesis verse. And once you really think about it, you realize there's not a lot of ground for why we should be eating animals. So what exactly is veganism? A lot of people have misconceptions about it, so I want to get the definition out there, right front and center. But according to the Vegan Society definition from 1951, veganism is a way of life that seeks to exclude, as far as possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, and any other purpose. I really want to highlight the possible and practicable part. For example, I have a disease and I need to take a lot of medicine for it. And a lot of the pills that I have to take have gelatin in them, which is made from animals. There aren't any other pills for me to take. I have to take them. It sucks. But I need to live, and I need that medicine to live. I also need the flu shot every year because I'm immunocompromised. And so if I get the flu, I would die. So the flu vaccine is very necessary for me to have, even though it has bits of egg, or it's cultured in an egg. I'm not entirely sure. Although a friend sent me a message last night saying that there's a new one that they made without egg that should be on the market next year. So that's really cool. So I think it's cool that science is continuously moving forward. But things like that, as far as possible and practical. One of the things people like to bring up, like, well, if you were on a deserted island and you had to kill a pig, like, okay, why am I on a deserted island in the first place? Where am I getting weapons to kill a pig? Why is there no other fruit or vegetables on this island? But if yes, that were the situation, if I were on some deserted island that had no plant matter that I could eat, and the only thing around were a bunch of animals, like, if I had to kill an animal to survive, yes, I could do that. It's okay. Although I really don't know why I'm on that deserted island. A lot of people try to gotcha vegans by saying, like, did you know when people harvest grains, some animals die because they get caught in the thing? And it's like, yeah, I know, I'm really sorry. Like, that is really sad, and I don't feel good about that. But do you oppose medical science because some people die in surgery? I didn't think so. All right. So environmental reasons was the real hook for why I became vegan. And so I'm going to focus a lot on that as opposed to the other reasons because I know them a little bit more. But according to Margaret E. Ensingmer, PhD, she's the associate chair of the Department of Health Policy and Management at Johns Hopkins University. She's pretty smart. She said about 2,000 pounds of grains must be supplied to livestock in order to produce enough meat and other livestock products to support a person for a year, whereas 400 pounds of grain eaten directly will support a person for a year. Thus, a given quantity of grain eaten directly will feed 5 times as many people as if eaten directly by humans in the form of livestock, as if eaten indirectly by humans in the form of livestock products. So, I'm sure you all had basic science lessons. You know that, conservation, like the sun beats down and it grows plants, and conservation of energy, just, with the basics, with energy, like, it's better for us to just eat plants directly than to feed them to animals who we then eat. It's just a big waste. And I don't know if you know it, but we have, a shortage of things on this planet. We have a finite amount of resources, be it water, be it land, be it plants. We are limited. As far as resource consumption, 50% of all water usage in the U.S. goes toward raising animals for food. Isn't that obscene? 50% of water. There are people who are dying because they don't have water. I grew up in Milwaukee, which, if you don't know, is right on Lake Michigan. And I remember when I was in high school, there was this really big controversy because the state of Arizona wanted to buy water from Lake Michigan because they just didn't have enough water to let people in Arizona live. And I don't even remember what happened, but the fact that other states wanted to buy water from us because they didn't have it, like, that's really scary that there is not enough water, not enough clean water, I should say, to go around. Another fact, raising animals for food uses up to 30% of the world's available land mass. That's a lot. That's a third, almost. But that's a huge amount. And a lot of things I hear people say, a lot of people have heard about how growing soy is ruining the Amazon because they're just clearing huge things of the Amazon to grow soy. And they're always like, you vegans who eat soy. 98% of the soy grown in the world are fed to farmed animals because it is full of protein, it fattens them up, and so they feed them that. 70% of grain grown goes to feed animals. When you think about it, if we just eliminated animals from our diets, how much water, plants, and land mass we would save. That's a lot. Everyone in here believe in global warming? Is anyone a global warming skeptic? Okay, good. I don't want to have to explain global warming. I didn't prepare for that. CO2 is actually, carbon dioxide is not the worst thing in the world for the planet. Plants absorb it and they spit it back out in the form of delicious oxygen. But you know, when you hear about global warming, people talk about carbon dioxide all the time. Really, the problems are methane and nitrous oxide, because one of them is dozens of times more destructive to the planet, and I believe it's nitrous oxide is, nitrous oxide is 300 times more destructive than carbon dioxide. That's a lot. But chickens, turkeys, pigs, and cows are collectively the largest producer of methane in the United States, and we are the largest consumer of animal products. But that's 20 times more destructive than carbon dioxide. The meat, egg, and dairy industries produce 65% of the world's nitrous oxide emissions, which, as I mentioned, is 300 times more destructive than carbon dioxide. That's really scary. A meat eater's diet is responsible for 7 times as many greenhouse gas emissions as vegans. That's a huge amount. One of the things I remember reading that really hooked me, because I was like, well, what about local or ethical or just there's sustainable meat? I'm just going to make a statement that some people might find controversial. There's no such thing as any of those. There's no such, well, there's local meat. Okay, that's true. But there's no such thing as ethical meat, and there's no such thing as sustainable meat. A global vegan diet, or a vegan diet of conventional crops from all over the globe would reduce dietary emissions by almost 90%. Compared to a token 8% for sustainable meat and dairy. If you had, if you were like, wow, you can do something that will reduce your carbon emissions by 90% or 10%, which would you choose? I'd hope you'd say 90. Yeah?
So that means to reduce our carbon footprint, we probably should try to be vegan.
Yes, absolutely. That is the #1 way to reduce your carbon footprint. I was reading about this, and giving up red meat once a week reduces your carbon imprint by the same as if you got every single thing you ate from within 50 miles. That's huge. That's one meal. But as far as people just say, like, well, ethical meat, like farm fresh eggs or ethically raised cows and stuff like that. I don't know how familiar you are with the Bible, but do you remember the story of the binding of Isaac? That's the story where Abraham, who was God's chosen, was told, take your son up to this mountain and kill him. And Abraham was like, why? He's my son. And God was like, because I said so, because I love you, and you love me, and so kill your son. That's awful, right? Like, I think we can all agree that, like, you know, if, let's say you had a kid and then you remarried somebody, and your new partner said, kill your kid because you love me, you'd leave that person, right? Like, you'd be like, oh my God, you're evil, that's awful. Nobody thinks that's okay today. Well, nobody in this room, I should say.
You're supposed to marry, a brother is supposed to marry their brother's widow and have children. And
that's also weird.
Yeah.
But no, so we're all horrified by that idea. So when people bring up, like, ethically raised animals, that's what it is, like, to me. It's like, So wait, you're telling me you're raising this animal lovingly, you're, letting it out, run out in the field, and you're, taking care of it, and you're bringing it fresh water in the winter, and, you pet it, and you love it, and then you cut its throat so you can eat it. Like, oh my God, that's horrifying. That's not love. That's not ethical. That's horrifying. Because the thing is, it's not necessary, and that's what makes it unethical, I know ethics are kind of up to each person, but in my view, that's not ethical at all. But local also does not equal better. A lot of people think, well, I only eat local meat. There are factory farms around here, right? Like, local doesn't mean better.
The Midwest, come on.
Yeah, we are the hub of factory farming. There was an article that I cite that I can link you to later. But to quote it, it says, to take an extreme example, people are really obsessed with the idea of local, even though local doesn't, what does local mean? Like, does it mean 10 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles, 300 miles? Like, what is local? And if people, the idea of shifting to local, like, it's good for your local communities, but it's also just, like, it's ruining farmers in South America and Asia and other places in the world. Like, I hope that you have a love for global humanity, not just the humans who happen to live in your neighborhood. But to quote the article, it says, to take an extreme example, a shipper sending a truck with 2,000 apples over 2,000 miles would consume the same amount of fuel per apple as a local farmer who takes a pickup truck 50 miles to sell 50 apples at his stall at the green market. The critical measure here is not food miles, but apples per gallon, which I think a lot of people don't think about. It's great to say, like, yes, I want to buy local, and it is good for your community, but you also have to think about your global community, and you also have to think about, like, what is best for the planet. I'm not going to go too deep into animal rights because I'm not a neuroscientist, I'm not an expert, but about 2 years ago, it was like July of 2011, a large group of scientists got together and signed the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness. And it goes through, it's this huge long paper that was very complicated for me to read. But they say, like, according to all of these findings, we declare the absence of a neocortex, which is what people say makes them human, does not appear to preclude an organism from experiencing affective states. Convergent evidence, they say things like that, that's why it's hard to read, indicates that non-human animals have the neuroanatomical, neurochemical, and neurophysiological substrates of conscious states, along with the capacity to exhibit intentional behaviors. Consequently, the weight of evidence indicates that humans are not unique in possessing the neurological substrates that generate consciousness. Non-human animals, including all mammals and birds, and many other creatures, including octopuses, also possess these neurological substrates. There's also been an article that's floating around for the past week, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's called Dogs Are People Too, and a neuroscientist trained some dogs to stand in MRI machines, and I don't know if you've ever been in an MRI, but it's really big, and you're stuck in there, and it goes bong, 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 and it makes a lot of really scary noises. So they train dogs to stand in these machines. And what they would do, and what an MRI does is it can measure your brain waves and other fancy science things that I don't 100% understand, but I grasp it a little. What they did is they said that basically when the dog's companion stands in, or a familiar face that they like, stands in front of them while they're in the MRI machine, their brain lights up the same way as when a human sees a person they love. Yeah, right? Like,
Babies.
Babies. I love dogs. I also love cats and goats and pigs and chickens and cows. And, I don't think people say, like, well, dogs are smart. Pigs are dirty. Pigs are actually way smarter than dogs. Pigs can solve puzzles. Pigs can do amazing, amazing things. And it's horrible what we do to them. Like, it's really, like, I'm getting kind of choked up just, like, talking about it because it's horrible. And I think everybody knows that. I can't remember whether it was Jonathan Safran Foer or Michael Pollan who said something like, people fundamentally have good values. It's just a matter of getting them to live by those values. Do you know who said it? It was Jonathan Seraphin Bauer who said it was essentially, I am not telling you to live by my values. I am asking you to live by yours. Yeah. No, like I think everyone in this room has great values. It's just a matter of you have to act them out, and sometimes it's hard and it takes work, but it's worth doing. I mean, I think everyone in here can agree that like sometimes compassion is really hard, but isn't it worth it? I hope you agree. But yeah, so there's more and more evidence saying that like humans are not unique. Like if you ask a Christian, well, what is it that makes humans unique? They argue, well, your soul. And I don't think anyone in this room believes in souls. So what does separate us from animals? Intelligence. Well, intelligence is designed by humans, so of course it's biased towards humans. But even so, like chimpanzees are as smart as children. And we lock them up in cages and make them perform for us. Would you be okay if we took like, well, there's some orphans, nobody really wants them, so we're gonna make them perform for us? Like what? Everybody would be like outraged. Everyone would be like, that's horrible. How could you do that? So how can we do that in zoos? Like zoos are just big slave pens. That's really sad because you think about how smart these animals are and how they're forced to perform for us. There's a documentary that came out recently called Blackfish about how animals at SeaWorld are basically like smart enough to know what's going on. Like an orca, I believe an orca's life expectancy in the wild is like 40 years. In captivity it's like 7 to 9. That's really sad. There are also, in regards to vegans who care a lot about animal rights, there's the rights and welfare. And I will say up front, I'm for animal rights. I am an abolitionist vegan, which means I think we should not use animals for any purpose at all, ever. They aren't ours to own. But to break down the argument, it's basically no cages versus bigger cages. Welfareists, like PETA is a welfareist organization. And they often will celebrate when Burger King said that by 2015 they were going to have all cage-free eggs or something like that. And PETA was like, great job Burger King. It's like, well yeah, but they're still killing like millions of animals. I'm not going to celebrate that. And it's hard because I want every animal that's alive today to have as good of a possible life as possible. But I also want them not to be killed for food or enslaved for entertainment. So it's a complicated issue. But yeah, I would say I follow pretty far on the rights side. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to make any health claims for anyone here. But according to the American Dietetic Association, who are doctors, they say a properly planned vegan diets are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits in the prevention and treatment of certain diseases. And they are appropriate for individuals during all stages of the life cycle, including pregnancy, lactation, infancy, childhood, and adolescence, and for athletes. Like, they are the authority on what humans eat, and they're like, yeah, veganism, thumbs up. There are a lot of studies that show that, like the China study, which was a longitudinal study about vegans, and it showed that they have lower rates of heart disease, cancer, all sorts of things. Yeah, basically, like, most doctors will give you the go-ahead. A lot of times when I tell people I'm vegan, they're like, where do you get your protein from? I don't know who or how this got started, but no one, like, unless you're actually, like, starving to death, nobody in the world is dying from protein deficiency. Like, protein deficiency, like, I don't want to say it's not a real thing, but it's not a real thing. At least it's not a real thing in that nobody has to worry about it. Like, soy has plenty of protein. Broccoli has plenty of protein. I believe soy has more protein per calorie than chicken does, which is cool, because a lot of people eat chicken because, oh, protein. But there's that. Kale is full of protein and iron, so yeah.
Just to back you up, peanuts and nuts.
Oh, nuts. Nuts are, I eat nothing but nuts. I love them. And
See, I'm the worst vegan. I hate nuts. Like, don't get your nuts anywhere, like, near me. I might as well be, like, allergic.
Yeah, no, but a lot of people say, like, well, I can't go vegan because I'm allergic to soy. I know vegans who are allergic to soy. I know vegans who are allergic to bananas. I know vegans who are allergic to nuts. Like, it's you know, I know vegans who have celiac disease. Like, it's possible to work around. We don't all just sit around and eat just tofu every meal. Like, I love tofu, but that's not everything I eat. Yeah.
So animals eat a vegetable diet, and they graze, and they take in all the calories that they need, and then humans eating animals they're bridging to that flora that the animals take in. To have a strong, healthy lifestyle as a vegan, do you have to graze at a similar level as an animal would in the wild to stock up, kind of like a panda eating bamboo shoots?
If
No.
you're eating nothing but leafy greens, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of vegans will supplement their diet with grains and all kinds of other things that fill you up. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you were only eating shoots and grasses, then maybe.
Yeah.
Grass has very low nutritional value.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think grasses.
They're also, like, when you think about, like, big grazing animals, they're, like, 400 pounds heavier than most
Yeah.
people are. So they need to be eating constantly just to be doing that. No, I mean, I eat 2 meals a day. I'm good. But, you know, my diet is full of protein because most Americans actually get too much protein, and that's making us sick. Yeah. Beans, yeah, beans are fantastic. And they're so full of so many good vegetables. There are actually a lot of studies that say that because a lot of people are like, oh, protein. The average American is deficient in, I think, 13 nutrients. I could be wrong on that. I didn't check that because I'm not smart. But a vegan diet is actually, vegans are actually deficient in far fewer nutrients on average. A lot of people point out that vegans can't naturally get B12 because B12 is the one thing people get from animals, and that's true, but there are vegan supplements. There's this stuff called nutritional yeast, and it's got like a nutty flavor, and you just sprinkle it on food, and it's delicious. It's like a seasoning. I use it as. Yeah. Oh yeah, we put on popcorn. Studio 35 does that. You can put the nutritional yeast on your popcorn. It's delicious.
Mac and cheese.
Oh yeah, no, mac and nooch is my jam.
It's also in fortified milks, soy milk, almond
Oh yeah, no, it's in a lot of
foods are fortified with these.
cereals.
yeah. No, most cereals are fortified with nutrients because average Americans don't get them. Almond milk.
Cornflakes don't naturally have those vitamins?
Oh, so weird.
Gosh.
No, actually most nut milks, like almond milk, soy milk, hemp milk, are actually higher in calcium than dairy is. So when people are like, oh, but calcium, oh, I get plenty of calcium. And you can be a junk food vegan. I mean, Oreos are vegan. So you could be eating nothing but like Oreos.
French fries.
French fries and Oreos. That's basically what I live on. But, yeah, so obviously you can be unhealthy as a vegan, but overall, like, if you're eating normally, you're going to be fine. Yeah.
I was wondering, is there stats out comparing, vegan diet, food costs with non-vegan? Is it more expensive, the same, or
It depends on what
more?
you're buying.
It really does. Like, I mean,
Like
you
if
can get stuff on sale. There's coupons just like there are.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
any
if you're buying in bulk, like if you're buying, like, I'm gonna buy this 70-pound bag of rice, and I'm gonna buy this huge thing of dry beans, and I'm gonna, make my own nut milk, and I'll buy it in bulk, like, then it's gonna be dirt cheap, just like if you're buying normal things in bulk. Yeah.
I don't have statistics off the top of my head, but it's interesting if you look up statistics about global animal product consumption, and I know obviously it's really difficult to compare like global living conditions to American living conditions because the poverty issues are very different. But meat and dairy consumption is a developed world phenomena where vegan like really vegan basic, like just grains, legumes, etc. are a more impoverished nation phenomenon.
Yeah,
And I mean,
also,
Sorry, you could also point out that most subsidies go to meat and dairy, as opposed to, I think, vegetables and fruit only get 1% of government subsidies, whereas meat and dairy get 75%, so.
And a pound of dried beans yields 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of cooked beans. And at about $1 a pound, maybe up to $1.50. Compare that to your pound of chicken or pound of whatever, it's substantially cheaper.
A lot of people say like, oh, well, ground beef and whatever. The best comparison to ground beef that's a vegan alternative is Kroger has a brand called Simple Truth, and they have veggie burger crumbles, and you can get a pound of veggie burger crumbles for far cheaper than a pound of actual beef.
And if you want to talk about, like, a lot of people ask me how hard is it to eat out. Well, fortunately, Columbus has like a really big vegan population, and the Betty's chains and other restaurants have done a really good job of flagging on the menu what's vegan, what's vegetarian, what's not. But if we're just going to put all that aside, like part of my job is to speak all over the world at conferences, and so being a vegan is kind of challenging. When I was in Uruguay, it was challenging. When I was in Scotland, it was challenging. But eating out with like family members and stuff, it kind of is much cheaper actually to be a non-meat eater, because if you think about it, any salad where they add chicken or any like steak or anything is so much more expensive than if I'm getting like, I don't know, like something without, like the vegetarian fajitas at El Vaquero are cheaper than the chicken or steak fajitas. So if anything, everybody's looking at their bill and I'm like, you guys are suckers. Like,
I really appreciate all this information you give, because what's unique about, I grew up on a farm, and my parents used to do, the old-fashioned butchering and that stuff, and your information is good, and I think more people need to consider this, thanks for the information.
And there's also a project, I can't remember if it's $1 or $3, but it was a couple who was doing, showing that they can survive on $1 or $3 a day on a vegan diet.
But a healthful
vegan diet. And it was difficult, and they don't recommend it, but they did it as a way to like prove that it can be done cheaply.
There are also specifically cookbooks for that, like the $4 a day on a vegan diet.
Okay.
there was also an episode of the extreme couponing. I don't know how many people watch that show, but I love watching people like hoard detergent. But there was an episode where the woman was, she was challenged to do something for like, they were taking in like foster or like abused children or children with like rage issues. There was a home, and part of the deal with the home was they were all like completely vegan diet and like sustainable. So she was challenged to, she had to buy like soy milk and she had to do all this stuff. So she ended up going to Whole Foods and like couponed her life away. And it was still significantly more expensive than other episodes. But if you think about other episodes, they're buying like chips, and chips are dirt cheap. So like it was really interesting to watch her like coupon for her life. And like I follow on Instagram a couple of vegans, and it's always fun to see them with their like coupon hoards and like what they got home with and how much they spent. I'm always like, yeah, get those little milk things, chocolate milk, delicious smoothie things.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of good stuff.
There are other costs that are also hidden in like the animal industry, like not only your taxes, but it's hidden in health, and it's also hidden in environmental costs. There's very little regulation about like runoff, like specifically from hog farms that poisons like groundwaters and stuff. So like we will collectively all pay for that, but it's just not at the checkout register at the grocery store.
Remember about 8 years ago, the spinach from the West Coast near Salinas, and the E. coli, I think is what, that was runoff from, I think cows upfield. So.
I don't know if you guys have kept up on the news, but have you heard about the massive salmonella outbreak? Over 300 people are hospitalized from it. And the government shut down so nobody can track it. Oh, and there's no one doing inspections of meat facilities right now because the government's shut down. So like, I'm a vegan, but I'm gonna tell you, don't eat meat while the government's shut down because you will get sick. Like, just being totally honest. Yeah.
Reagan era started a trend in reducing the number of employees in departments. They tried to mess with the airport people. I can't remember.
TSA?
No, it's the
Controls.
air traffic controllers.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's the
And
beginning of the end.
they started reducing the number of people employed to inspect food.
No,
Because
it's,
we can trust corporations to do this, right?
oh, no, that's right. Corporations have always done good by humanity. I should have, good thing I voted for Romney. Sorry, I couldn't remember the Republican candidate. I'm joking, I absolutely did not vote for Romney. Yeah, no, there was a recent study done that showed how infrequently meat or slaughtering facilities get inspected, and when they do, the rules again for slaughterhouses for safety and for animal safety, for worker safety, for animal safety, and for like people eating the food safety, those rules aren't followed, but there are no real punishments. Like there's just the law is not set up to punish people who violate these laws. So like you hear stories about like the way meat processing facilities are set up is horrific, period. But like things like, you know, the animal's supposed to be dead before they drop it into boiling water. And a lot of times the animal's not dead. And so it's just a live animal dropped into boiling water. And that's horrifying. And sorry for grossing everyone out, but that's the industry standard. And so, and the thing is, people are like, well, if we just got rid of like factory farming, 95% of food in the U.S. is factory farmed.
And a lot of people, I think, don't realize that statistic, and that's something to understand. You're driving down 71, you see like a couple of happy cows off the side of some like podunk farm, and you assume that's where your burger comes from. But if you look at the drive-through line at any Wendy's or Burger King, there's no way that those 5 cows you saw off the side of the highway are sustaining all the hungry people going to Burger King.
Yep. No, it's sad, and a lot of the industry is saying like, well, we have to do it this way because there's so much demand. All right, you're right. Let's reduce the demand. Like, I'm opting out. I can't stop factory farming by myself, but I'm sure not contributing to it. At least my money is not, aside from my taxes, of course, that are going to without my consent.
It's not an I think keeping in the subject of compassion, it's not an absolutely perfect work, but the book Eating Animals by Jonathan Seraphin Foer is really incredible. He writes about basically is a vegetarian his whole life, and then he realizes he's gonna have a son, and so he is trying to inform himself about the food industry so that he can decide how to raise his son, and it's really easy to sort of have these really blamey sort of conversations about factory farmers and why they do these things.
Yeah.
But and he interviews quite a few factory farmers who say like, we just have to keep up demand. We don't want to do it this way. We don't hate animals.
Yeah.
So I think keeping like our role as consumers in the equation is really, really critical, especially in like having compassion and having a full understanding of the situation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that a lot of times the cheaper meat is usually coming from the terrible farms. Like it's marketed to poor people, and there are a lot of times where it's like, you go to some of the poorer neighborhoods, even in Columbus, and there's not a grocery store for miles. And if you don't have a car, how are you supposed to get healthy groceries from the store? Oh, but there's a Quickie Mart right down the street, and you can stop there and get a burger. And so it's, you have to be careful not to blame, people for their situations. And you do have to show compassion. But, when you're like a middle-class white person who lives right next door to a grocery store and has a car, and, I think it's worth taking the extra 20 minutes at the grocery store to figure out what your food is. There's actually an app called Boycott that I really like. And you can select companies that you don't want to buy from. So I don't want to support the Koch brothers. So I scan barcodes before I buy things. And if it says nope, this is made by the Koch brothers, I go, I guess I'm going to buy another brand. But they have vegan and not tested on animals. Because a lot of, I learned this from in my environmental communications class when I was in college. But I didn't realize that meat is like a luxury item. And it's seen as really it's a luxury item because during the Depression, people couldn't afford meat, so they were living on broths and bread and grains and stuff. And then after we came out of the Depression, people wanted to show off how wealthy they were. We eat meat every day. We eat it every meal. And then, those people became our grandparents, and then our grandparents raised our parents who were like, well, when my parents couldn't have meat for every meal, so we're having it all the time. That's why you get sausage with your breakfast. That's why your lunch is a meat sandwich. That's why your dinner's a big thing of meat with a little bit of vegetables next to it. And then they raised us, and so it's kind of like, oh, so that's why we eat meat for every single meal, because no other country consumes meat the way we do. Like, there are a lot of people who go to Australia or Great Britain or other countries, and they go, it was so weird because portions are so small. And if they don't mean the portions are so small, they mean the meat portions are so small. Because in Europe, meat is often a side dish. Like, the main part of your food is like, oh, well, look at this like awesome salad I have, and these fruits and and these grains and these beans, and then I have this little thing of meat on top of it. Like, we don't, in America, it's hunk and steak and then like a garnish.
So cilantro on top.
Yeah,
There you
there's a
go.
little bit parsley. I'm eating healthy, guys. But anyway, so what can you do? Like, what can a normal person do? Well, my first thing, don't eat animal products. That's not possible for everyone. But the things that are visible, boycott entertainment venues that use animals. Like, don't go to the circus if they've got elephants. Don't go to SeaWorld and see the dolphins perform, because they're just slaves. Like, they're, animals that just want to be free and do their own thing. And, they seem happy and they probably get along with their handlers really well, but they're not given any agency. And I think that alone is a crime. Don't buy products tested on animals. Like, even if you walk out of here totally unconvinced and go, I'm not giving up my meat, I'm not giving up my burgers, that's fine. But think about things like, why does your makeup have to be tested on animals? Makeup's been around for a really long time. I think we've established what's safe and what's not safe. I mean, I don't work for the industry. I don't know. And I know there are a lot of things against medical testing on animals, and, as a sick person, like, my feelings are conflicted because I don't want animals to be tested on, but I also want people to not die of diseases that can be treated. But yeah, like, you can just do some basic looking into things. Like, look at your makeup brands. Are they testing on animals? And if they are, switch. There are plenty of other good makeup brands out there that don't use animal testing.
And as far as like ease of this, you can go to any Kroger and they have a section where it's all non-animal tested products that are labeled with not animal tested. We get our detergent from Kroger for our laundry detergent. We get, shampoo and conditioner that aren't animal tested, and they're all just labeled right there, and you can find them.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of vegans out there who, are very hippie, and I'm cool with that. Sean and I, my partner Sean, I wouldn't classify us as hippies. I would say we're pretty standard, normal people. We just don't use things that are tested on animals. But yeah, the Boycott app, if you have a smartphone, Boycott is by far like one of my favorite apps. You just download it and you can select things. So you can select like not tested on animals or no animal products in it. Even because sometimes it's really hard to, when you're looking at a ingredients packet on, a box of cereal or something, and there are like 300 things and it's like this long, and you're like, oh, I don't know. And then, Sean and I still mess up. Like, there are times where he'll bring something home from the store that I've never seen before, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's eggs in here. And he goes like, oh shoot, I didn't see that. They've gotten better in recent times because of allergy testing. So a lot of times you can just look at the bottom and it'll say like, contains milk or contains eggs. And so that's really helpful. There are secret hidden things that most people wouldn't know, and you kind of just, you learn. Like, when Sean and I first went vegan, we messed up a lot, and there would be times where we're like, oh, I accidentally got my sandwich with cheese on it. And it's kind of up to you, like, well, it would be a waste for me to throw it away, but I also don't want to eat it, and so but it's up to you. Like, most vegans are going to understand if you say, like, they accidentally put mayonnaise on my sandwich, and I just ate it because I didn't want to throw it away. No vegan's going to be like, you are crucified right now. If they are, they're probably not a compassionate person. So, one documentary that's on Netflix that I really, really enjoyed, it's probably my favorite documentary out there. It's called Vegucated, and it's on Netflix streaming, so you can just go home and watch it tonight if you want. But it's just a really good documentary. It follows 3 different people, and the woman who made the documentary just got 3 different people and said, I want you to go vegan for 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 6 weeks. She goes, I just want you to go vegan for 6 weeks and I'll film it. So she filmed a single mother, she filmed a Latina college student, and a 20s or 30s bachelor guy. And they all had their own kind of struggles and challenges. She took them to a farm to see, like, you know, kind of how things happen. She showed them things, and like one of the I really resonated with the single mother with some of the things she said. Like the first meal they had together, they went out to this nice restaurant and they all had vegan meals. And she was like, I feel so light, and I feel full. But like, you know how like after Thanksgiving dinner when you've eaten turkey and, you know, mashed potatoes with gravy and butter and all that, you're like, oh, I'm so full, I wish I were dead. I can't do anything but nap. Wake me up in 12 years. Like, you know that, you guys know that feeling? I don't get that feeling as a vegan. And I don't want to speak for everyone's experience, but I don't feel as heavy when I eat vegan. Like, not eating animal products makes, like, I feel full, but I feel like happy and good that I ate food. Like, I don't feel like, oh, I can't, I'm dead, I'm sorry, goodbye. like my family does after Thanksgiving. And part of it might be overeating, but I overeat a lot as a vegan, so I'm like, this food is so good. But it's still, I don't feel like I can't move, I'm dead. So she said that, and I was like, oh, that's what I said. But it's a really interesting documentary. I think it's pretty non-judgmental. And I think everyone in the world has Netflix at this point, so.
It's also on iTunes and Amazon.
It's on those. It's good. And if you don't have Netflix, you can come over to my house and we'll watch it, and I will tell you about veganism.
My boyfriend is not a vegan. He's a meat-eating carnivore, which is his decision. And I don't preach to him, but I did watch Vegucated with him, and he confirmed that it is not preachy, and it's one of the best vegan documentaries he's ever seen. He doesn't like the preachy vegans or the PETAs.
Yeah, no, like Forks Over Knives is a really popular one.
Yeah.
And I watched it like after I'd been vegan for a full year or so, and I was like, this is really propaganda-y. And like one of the things they say, they're like they're talking to somebody who has heart disease or a heart condition, and he's like, well, I take 13 medicines a day. And the guy came in and they were like, don't take any medicines, just go vegan. And I was like, oh my God, don't say that to anyone. Do not listen to that to anyone. Please take all your medicines, talk to your doctor. Don't take some stranger's advice. See a doctor. So I pretty much when I watched Forks Over Knives, I was cringing the whole time. Like there were cool things like a vegan diet does not include any cholesterol because all cholesterol comes from animal products. So if you like naturally have high cholesterol, or if you just have high cholesterol now, like going vegan will reduce your cholesterol. But do talk to a doctor. I'm not your doctor or a doctor at all. Finally, there's another website that I really like. It's called vegankit.com. And it's just got a lot of cool information. It's broken up into little categories like vegan food, vegan products, vegan clothing. And it's got like, why should you go vegan? It's got a lot of information. It's really sad actually, because I always go there for more information, but it's got these like ticking bars on the side that say how many animals are killed in the time since you loaded the website. I'm like, oh no, 4,000 cows have died in the 10 seconds I've been here. Like, I don't even remember the number, but it's like billions of animals. Is it a day or a year?
6 billion, I think, is the number per year.
Yeah, 56 billion animals per year are killed for
That's
food.
only considering land animals. If you include fish, it's a lot closer to about a trillion.
Yeah, no, that's a big old bummer. But it's true, and it sucks that we have to accept, that's the reality we live in. But anyway, this is something that I heard right before I went vegan, and it really hooked me. But if you want to make a statement, ride your bike to the farmer's market. If you want to make a difference, go vegan. Here is a list of my sources, and I'll give you this. If you want to view this website this presentation on your own, there's a little shortened link for you. And this is a little clip from The Simpsons that I really liked from when Lisa went vegetarian. Some girl saying, "Are you going to marry a carrot, Lisa?" And Lisa goes, "Yes, I'm going to marry a carrot." Any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
we watch a lot of PBS.
Okay.
And I don't remember if it was Nova or one of the green and growing type shows. Monsanto, GMOs.
Yep.
They're saying that Monsanto is heavily selling seed for soybeans and corn. How do you find out if your supplier has gotten a product from a farmer that's using their product?
There are actually, one of the cool things I've noticed, because there's a lot of like brand interaction online now, and like companies want you to interact with them online. And, you know, they offer gimmicks like, well, if you like our page, we'll give you a coupon. And I'm like, yeah, I want that, because I'm gullible, and I'm like, yeah, coupons, I like that. So I've liked all of the companies I regularly buy from that are vegan companies, like Earth Balance. They make like butter spreads, they make snacks, they make vegan mayonnaise. There's Gardein, there's Tofurkey, and most of them actually like will specifically say like on all of their products, all of their things, we use no GMOs.
Well, the reason I mentioned those two products is because the documentary or program it indicated that they had modified it so that it kills insects that try to eat the plant.
Right.
The problem is, they claim this doesn't harm humans. They're finding children and adults with tiny holes in their colons because in the insect, it explodes their stomach.
Yeah.
In humans, it causes tears. And once the food and waste get into the bloodstream for the colon, whatever you've eaten that has that in it creates an allergy to that food.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's sticky because, like, in theory, GMOs are not inherently bad. Like, modifying food is not, like, evil or scary or terrible. But Monsanto is a horrible corporation that is destroying farmers. And Monsanto is the main company that's doing GMOs, so it's kind of like, but I want to be pro-science, and there's not, like, because people will complain about, like, basic GMO things, like, but the thing is, we've been doing genetic modifying for hundreds of years, we just didn't do it at the same level. Thousands of years, yeah, like, you know, just stuff of like, well, we bred this, you know, we purposely bred this kind of wheat because it grows faster or something. Like, that's a thing humans have been doing for ages.
Right, dog breeds.
Yeah, dog breeds are genetically modified.
How do you get like a tiny dog and then like my dog?
Yeah, exactly.
Still a dog.
But Monsanto is a horrible, evil corporation, so it's a tricky thing. But that's, you know, considering that 98% of the soy grown goes to animals, there are a lot of companies out there that, vegan companies specifically, that are like, we don't do any GMOs.
Well, they're also self-interested because in third world countries, people have always saved their seeds. And they have convinced them, you need to just discard your old seeds and use ours. And then a drought hits, and only the guy who saved his seeds has a crop.
And Monsanto makes their seeds where they won't repropagate from
Yep.
source. And Monsanto sues farmers nearby because birds picked up their seeds and pooped them onto their land. So now they're growing their product and they get sued and put out of business.
That
Well, in
one's my
fact, the
favorite.
Supreme Court sided with corporations like Monsanto.
Well, the
Weird,
guy
but-
who wrote the decision used to work for Monsanto.
Oh.
The Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas. used to work.
Simon?
Well, I was gonna say, I think that's such, when we're talking about like the interaction of, when we're talking about food regulation, it's absolutely impossible